talk about how breathing and respiration mechanics can also affect the lower back and the hips. It's pretty easy to see how breathing with movement of the rib cage can have a profound effect on the upper back and the neck. But we got to go over a little bit of anatomy to give some context to how breathing can affect the lower back. Okay? So I'm going to go over an image and I'm just going to talk over it. So what happens in the lower back is, in order for the diaphragm to drop down, as we talked about earlier, we need the rib cage to be able to come down so that the diaphragm can make a straight angle down towards the floor. On the same token though, if our diaphragm's pushing our guts down, we need our pelvis to be able to catch those goods, okay? So as the diaphragm drops, we need our pelvis to be able to accept it. So let's say we're doing a great job with being able to get that exhale, getting that diaphragm to be able to be more parallel to the ground. But if we have a pelvis that's really rocked forward, okay, which is a really, really common thing that we see, regardless of how people are built, there's different reasons why they might be in that anterior tilted position, but they'll be in that position. So hopefully you can see on the image here that as we go to take the breath in, if our pelvis is not parallel to that diaphragm most of the time, then the only way we can create more room for the abdomen to take more of that pressure from the diaphragm dropping is to have the guts go forward. And in order to make that happen, we have to create more of a compressive force in the low back muscles, okay? So even just standing there or sitting or anything, but if you're in this anterior tilted position all the time, that means the muscles are already on in the low back, and they have to squeeze even higher harder when you have to go take a breath in to create enough room to allow your abdomen to expand as the diaphragm drops when you inhale. But then the problem is if when you're in this position, now the muscles in the back of your hips can't turn on, and those are our giant muscles that we use for standing and walking. So if those are off, well, we can't really use them for keeping our balance, so therefore we end up using our low back muscles a lot just to stand there, to be able to do the dishes, to be able to talk to friends, and we're using those muscles instead of those muscles in the back of our hips and our legs to propel ourselves to walk. Okay? So a common presentation I'll have is this bone right here. There's not a lot of movement between this big thing right here and this right here, okay? So what'll happen, right, is a lot of people hang out in this kind of position with the pelvis tilted forward like this, and the tailbone almost up and by a few degrees, just up there a little bit, okay, up towards the ceiling. So if we hang out in that position, we've shut off all of our big back hip muscles and the hamstrings right here, okay? So when we're just standing here, we're using our low back to take a breath in, okay? And every time we go to take a step, or even, what happens is we need the pelvis to be able to move and rotate over a fixed femur. Okay, so let's say if our foot was on the ground here, we need the pelvis to be able to do this. But if the pelvis is rocked forward in this position, we've lost the ability for it to rotate separate from our lower back. So we don't really get any hip motion, we're just rotating through our lower back, okay? Because the muscles that create this rotation force over the femur are the ones that are located back here, but they're turned off because we're hanging out like this, okay? Now let's say we need to go pick something up, something heavy, and we need to have enough intra-abdominal pressure, enough pressure pushing against the front of the spine to pick something up. Okay, so we moved away from standing, okay, and now we're going to go to pick something up. So if we're still hanging out in this position here, we've turned off the muscles here, and all the pressure in our abdomen is going forward. So the problem with that is we need pressure to go against the front of our spine, okay? It needs to come this way when we go to pick something up heavy. If we can't do that and we're still in this position, then the thing that we're lifting with, instead of the big muscles in our hips and our legs, is instead going to be our lower back muscles. And often that's when people feel pain in the front of their knee because they're in a orientation that's creating more compression on their kneecap. So what we need to do is to learn how to first, when we're doing our breathing mechanic exercises, is to know how to be able to move this pelvis, to reorient it. It's not necessarily stuck, it's not out of alignment. We just need to be able to move it into a different position, to be able to catch our guts when we need to, when we got to lift something heavy, or we need to be able to rotate over our femurs so that we can walk rather than just twisting through our lower back. Okay. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Feel free to reach out to us, email or call Dragonfly with any other questions or concerns, or go ahead and leave some comments. If there's anything else you'd like us to dive into more about the lower back and hips and breathing mechanics.